Hey, so today I'm going to be showing off this little digital asset I made in Houdini. This is also for school. I'm a master's student at Bournemouth University, and this is one of the projects that we did. Basically, what this does is it has 5 different building models, and it spreads them out randomly. It picks a city center, it builds the terrain, it does all of that stuff, and has a whole bunch of user options as well. So the general idea for this was create a city with very simple geometry for like testing and blocking purposes, and then you'll be able to plug in more detailed geometry later. The requirement was for us to have 5 different buildings. So my 5 different buildings, I think you could see them here, is I've got a simple box. I've got this little temple thing. You can kind of see it in there. Here we go. Zoom in. So you got this little temple thing. I have this. I called it a slice. I was kind of going for a more futuristic vibe, but I don't know. I thought it was cool. And then you've got a house with roof, which is this guy. So as you can see, as you move out into the burbs, it's only house with roof and boxes, just because it made more sense for that to happen. So sorry, it takes a while to scroll out. So yeah, that's the basic thing. So we're gonna go over into the node network and see how that works. So we've got this. So this is the digital asset that we built for this project, or I built for this project, and it's got a whole bunch of different options. So most of them you're going to want to either hide the buildings or turn on simple buildings, which turns every building into a generic box. Because that makes it easier on processing, but we're going to hide buildings to start with. So currently I have user painted roads turned on. You can turn that off and turn it into square blocks. So I'm going to make it 3 by 7. It'll calculate it. So it also calculates the city center, and it tries to keep the center of the city away from where the blocks are. So you can see the blocks kind of move around based on where the city center is. It's not blocked out, but anyway, so that works out. You can also repaint the road. So if I hit this button, it'll dive you into my node network, which we'll look at later. But I can just paint another road in here. Not that I really want to, but there's another one. Go right over there. So it doesn't override the watercolor, so that'll stay the same, and it'll only be a road if it's this very dark color. So these gray colors up here, they won't register as roads. So just have to go back up, and it'll have propagated. It has to recalculate, so it'll take a second, but see, our road is there because I painted it. So that's lovely. So if we hide the buildings again, and let's not show the colors for just a second so that we can repaint the water. So I also have this thing here to paint the water. So if we were to start this off with the just completely blank project, it would just be the Houdini terrain that it produces, and then you could paint the water onto a blank thing. But got a little river here, got a little ocean, pretty cute. So once we're done painting the water that we want to, we go back up, turn the colors back on, turn the buildings back on, recalculates. Everything looks great. You can see there's this little building down here. So if we wanted to get rid of that, we would just put a road over it. So I'd go back into repaint roads, and I'd, as you can see, it takes a little bit to process when I when I don't turn the buildings off, which is why it does that. But there's other options. So one of the requirements for this project was that we be able to input user buildings. So if the user had different buildings that it wanted, it could put them into the inputs up here. I didn't test that very thoroughly, so it's not the greatest feature. But yeah, so you can also change the height of the buildings. So these are the default settings because I think they're pretty and I like them. But so you can change the height of the buildings in the city center. Let's turn on simple buildings for this so the process is faster. But yeah, you can change the height of the buildings in the city center. You can make the main city much taller, just make the whole thing tall. But the burbs are obviously pretty short, and the outskirts, you can just crank those settings, yeah. But yeah, it runs circular from the center. So if you want to dive in here and just kind of like see how it works, I'll turn off that. So first thing it does is it generates the terrain and converts it into a polygon grid. And then this is where all of the processing happens. So when this was the first thing that we did with Houdini, and so I wasn't all that experienced. And basically, I have a coding background, and I was like, oh, so there are these nodes where I can code. All right, so I just put it in a whole bunch of for loops, which works. It works great, but it makes everything super slow, which is why I have all of these settings up here for turning on and off the buildings, turning on and off the colors, because if they're on, it has to run through those for loops, and it's pretty slow. So the reason it does that is that I based everything off of these colors here. The for loops run through, it creates the water. The for loops run through, it creates the red, which is a slope that is too steep to put a building on. And it runs through and creates the roads if we have the blocks turned on and not the user painted roads. So that's why it's so slow. If I were to redesign this, I wouldn't base it off of primitive colors, but that was the easiest way to do it, at least from my beginner's perspective. So that's why it's slow, but otherwise I would like to redo it and make it better. So let's turn the buildings back on because it looks nice. I made them really tall so it looks silly. But yeah, so after that we sort the numbers of the primitives so that they go around the city center that we picked out in this for loop code. And then once we do that, we can place all the buildings, and so I subdivide these outer ones over here into 4 because it makes sense for there to be smaller buildings out in the burbs. So that takes a little bit. And then, let's see, what does this for each loop do? Oh, this turns everything into points so that I can place the buildings onto points. And then we resort again. And then we start adding attributes so that we can change. There is random height variation between all of these buildings. So we add random height variation in there. And then this is the for each loop that places the buildings, which are over here. So this is the simple box. This is the stack box is what I called it. It's a little skyscraper with little stacks. You can see one over here. Yeah, it's a little skyscraper with little stacks. So there's a random number of stacks, and they also have a random height. There's this one, which I called the slice. So the slice has 2 versions. It can be a full revolution, which you can see right here. So it's like a little spike, or it can be a little slice here. So that's, and it can also be of a random height, and the slice can be of a random amount between, I believe, 90 and 180. Can't quote me on that. I think it's 45 and 180. And then the citadel is what I call it. I pointed one of those out earlier. Here's one. So it's a little circle on top with squares around the outside. And then box with roof. Pretty self-explanatory. There's water here. So yeah, they all have a couple of random different things, and they could all be switched out with user inputs if you wanted. And then here's the switch between buildings, which is run off of the attributes over here. And then these are little switches for showing and hiding the buildings and the colors, which make things go faster because it skips massive parts of this monster. It merges it all together, and it shows you the final thing, and that's pretty much it. So you can zoom back out here. I think it's pretty good, especially for like a first major project for Houdini. I would really like to get more experienced. I really enjoy Houdini. I really enjoy the no network process. The front-end development on this half of the screen, I don't find quite as enjoyable, but the node stuff, the hard code stuff, I enjoyed that quite a lot. Yeah, so that's pretty much this project. I think it was a really good learning experience. If I were to do it again, I would have to rebuild everything from the ground up because the way that I based everything off of primitive colors, I don't think it was definitely a very good learning experience, but I don't think it's the best solution for this problem. But yeah, I had a really good time with this, and I hope you enjoyed looking at it.